If you've been watching this channel for a while, you probably realize that I have this pipe dream of the United States going back onto a gold standard, of central bankers returning to an era of sound money where the money printers don't go on without end, and we actually find out what an ounce of gold or silver is really worth. But not so fast, although I might like that scenario that would actually be incredibly painful for the average citizen who doesn't own a single ounce of gold or silver. This is part 3 of my interview with Kirian Deso von Hest. And in this interview, we talk about what a gold revaluation might look like. And we also get into some of the details of the shenanigans going on at the Comex and how they've managed so far to avoid this inevitable correction in the price of gold. Without any further ado, here's Kirian Deso van Hest.
So if you just look at the gold on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet that the Federal Reserve is supposed to hold, that comes down to 8,000 tons. And if you divide that by the M2, which is 22 trillion, you come down to a gold price of about 85,000 an ounce, which is considerably more than the 1,800 gold is supposed to be at now. Now, when that revaluing happens, everybody who doesn't own gold is basically going to lose 97 point something percent of all their value or all their purchasing power. And that's if the gold is still there, because we found problems with the auditing process of the gold that's, in Fort Knox. And at this point, I'm not even sure if all of it's there. So we might end up at much higher prices. And if the revaluing happens, it's not going to stop at 85,000, because then the question becomes how much more money is going to be printed from this point on forward. Now, we know that the US government, because of the debt problem that I explained earlier, they can't stop spending because they can't bring in more taxes in revenue than they are spending on budget. So they would spend a lot more money, which would create more money because nobody's going to buy those bonds. So the Fed has to buy it all again, which prints money. So the inflation gets worse. So the price goes up further. People have been asking me to put a price on gold, or how high is gold going to go? I can't tell you. I genuinely can't tell you, because I'm just going to mention a vertical slice of time in the path of hyperinflation and pick a number. Like, even if you go by the price of gold in 1980, because the 8,000 tons of gold supposedly on the balance sheet was declared already in 1980. That number hasn't changed since then, but the M2 money supply has. So if we just take those numbers, since 1980, the M2 money supply has gone up 14.53 times. So if we take the gold price of 1980, which was a bottom in between two peaks, do that times 14, you come to a gold price of 4,590. So even by that measure, gold should be double the price it is now. I mean, how much more evidence do you want that the Comex is suppressing it?
Oh, preacher and choir here. Trust me on that. So what we've got going on right now, like we've had trillions of dollars in wealth has just gone up in smoke this year, right? Crypto obviously not doing so well. The bond market has been selling off. The stock market has been selling off. Real estate looks like it's going to start selling off at some point. And yet gold is not moving. And at some point, there is going to be this massive flight to safety. This is me speculating here. We're going to see some massive flight to safety, but if we're in the midst of a debt crisis, then the bond market is no longer that safe haven that it typically functions at. Where else can the money go?
But gold.
Precious metals, right?
It will go there. It is going there, but it's retail sales that have picked up. We are tracking that on Twitter as well. And APMEX has been selling like crazy. Other bullion retailers are also saying that demand has never been so high in years and years and years. It's just that it's not run out yet in the Comex or in the other trading houses. The LME, by the way, quit silver and gold futures, so they're getting out of the way of the steamroller. Just to remember people that this is moving, this is happening. But even if you look at the previous time something like this happened, so the failure of the London gold pool, that happened in 1968. The US didn't go off the gold standard until 1971. And that was, and the French sent a battleship before then. So you could somehow say that the situation was already more escalated than it is now. So this might just take a while longer.
So, I mean, can the Comex conceivably? You've got a pretty vivid imagination, obviously.
Yeah.
Can they avoid it? Can they postpone that forever? Because if you would have asked me a year ago, year and a half ago, as Silver Squeeze was starting, I would have said, this is it, right? The situation we're describing, it's happening right now in real time. But they avoided it. They got out of it.
Yeah, by lying.
Yep.
By lying about 110 million ounces.
Yep.
Look, the only reason the system didn't collapse right then and there is because everybody let them get away with it. Look, if somebody pisses in your face and you give them a thumbs up, you're just going to have to take it. What else can I say?
So did people just fall for it? I mean, we had the changing, the SLV prospectus change in the middle of the night, the dumping of 2 billion ounces in the morning, the CNBC articles, the downgrade by JP Morgan, all that morning of February 1st.
I'll give you a better one. I called for the Comex to die twice. Just the first time I wasn't known yet. The first time I called for it to die was in August of 2020. But the delivery started on July of 28th of the August contract, right? On July 27th, the Comex tripled the refiners list. Tripled it. Refineries from China, Russia, all just got added to the list. Like, well, for silver, it doubled. From gold, it tripled. But that's the only reason they lived. Otherwise, it would have collapsed in 2020.
So they survived by adding refiners from China to create new supply. Am I understanding that right?
I'll tell you even better. I found no evidence that they added assayers. So when you're obviously when the bars get made, you got to find out whether they're legit or not, because somebody might screw you. And if you download the service provider's Excel sheet from the Comex, then they've got on there, the approved brands and all the refineries that deliver into the Comex, where the Russian ones got scrapped due to the war. But they also have a different tab that says assayers. Now, I looked up what assayer means, even though I kind of already knew. And that's the guys who have to assay the bars, whether it's all legit.
Yeah, it's gold, right? Make sure it's gold. That's what they do.
They never expanded that list. So logic just makes me wonder, how can they assay the same volume of bars without expanding the assayers list? There's something like 4 assayers that do it on the list. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I may be too paranoid, but this is too much for me. I would like some bars checked.
So we could be looking at a market that's been flooded with counterfeit Chinese tungsten. Is that what you're saying? And
I would not make that claim just outright, but the problem is that the appearance of something like that happening is there. Not too long after they added all these refineries to the list, some scandal in China with gold broke out, where they found 81 tons of it being counterfeit. And that was some whole gold lending scheme where it all disappeared onto one balance sheet, and finally got found out that none of it was legit. Just another Ponzi scheme, But it's just to say that you can't trust anyone, and especially not with gold. And I'm not saying specifically that the Chinese or the Russians did anything. It's just that when you have a certain volume that you need to check, and all of a sudden you up that volume, and as we all know, Comex delivery has been crazy since 2020. If you don't increase the number of people checking those bars, that's going to either lead to less bars being checked or not checked at all. Because we live in reality. You got to make up the difference somehow.
And it's not like these bars are getting regularly melted down and used in some industry, right? I mean, they pretty much just sit in a vault and they have the paper attached to them change.
Well, some do, because London good delivery bars aren't the same as Comex delivery bars. So this 100 ounces, 400 ounces, and that has to get remelted in Switzerland. But I do think at the same time, there must be stock that barely gets moved at all. There are certain piles that get exchanged all a lot. If you have to have it at the back of the warehouse, it's a real problem getting it to the truck. So why not load up the gold bars that are in the front when the whole thing's fungible anyway?
And
So
wasn't that another change that they made in the middle of the night? Didn't the Comex change their rules to allow London bars onto the Comex so they could come up with some supply to make delivery in 2020?
that was the 4GC contract. Yeah, because the pandemic shut down all the supply chains. There was also no way to get gold from Swiss refineries to New York. So at some point, actually, people started chartering flights. It's quite a crazy time. But to serve liquidity, the LBMA colluded with the COMEX to come up with this contract where you could buy a fractional slice of a 400-ounce bar. So one 400-ounce bar sliced into four is, 4 100-ounce bars, and they would later get melted down. A lot of stuff got flown back too when the whole curve structure inverted, and suddenly it was cheaper to export gold again. Anyways, there's no liquidity in the contract anymore. That was just a smokescreen.
So there you have it, folks. The problem with the return to the gold standard is for people who don't own any gold, their money is going to become essentially worthless, and they could lose something to the tune of 97 or 98% of their spending power. Now, for folks like us that actually own physical gold or silver, it would be incredibly beneficial, but the average person would be in a world of hurt if that were to ever happen. And of course, we've all heard the theories that the price of gold and silver is manipulated at the COMEX and the LBMA, and as you can see from what Kirian just said, it actually runs a whole lot deeper than even most people realize. Folks, this is just part 3 of my interview series with Kirian Deso von Hest. There are links down below to the other parts of this interview series. You can check those out. Also, I've got links down below to Kirian's website, to his Substack, his Twitch stream, all of his work, even the books that he's written. Kirian does fantastic work. We're very lucky to have him with us here on this channel, and I highly recommend you check out all those links. Until next time, live small and dream big.